Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today it's time for me to do a book haul. I have not done a book haul I think since the first quarter of this year, and I'm in desperate need of just letting you know which books have been added to my shelves. I'm sure that you have seen them as I just put them on my shelves as soon as I get them, but I want to go through them because a lot of them are books that I have read and really loved, and so this is kind of a book recommendation video on top of being a book haul. And you can see some of my goodies that I'm adding to my physical TBR as well. I will split these into genre categories. So my largest genre, which we'll go through first, is my fantasy books. And then I have some sci-fi, some horror, and one mystery that I will tell you guys about as well. So starting with fantasy, and a fantasy romance at that, and that is A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. This book I wanted to purchase when I purchased her other book, A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, and I couldn't find an edition that I was really happy with, and so I was very excited when shortly after that book haul I found this copy in a local bookstore, and I was really excited to add it to my collection. If you haven't heard about it or any of the two books that I just mentioned by Sangu Mandana, they're both 5-star reads for me. This one features Mika Moon, who is a witch in a society where they only meet every once in a while, and they're not allowed to live next to each other because of various circumstances of the magic in their world. The normal world doesn't know about witches, and she poses as a fake witch online, which ends up getting her into the attentions of someone who desperately needs her to come and help train the 3 young witches that are currently living in this house with no other witchy person to kind of direct them on how to use their magic. It's very sweet, very found family. I absolutely love both books by Sangu Mandana. I think this one is my favorite. I just really love how sweet the relationship is, not only between the main character and her love interest, but also the main character and these 3 young girls that she's helping get through a time in their lives where things are kind of confusing and can be challenging, especially with magic added into the mix. Next, definitely changing gears, we have The Raven Tower by Ann Leckie. I have started to add Ann Leckie to my shelves. This is one of her rare fantasy works, and I absolutely loved it. It was a 5-star read, one of my favorite books of the year last year. It has 2 main storylines, one where you're following the life of a god, kind of figuring out that they are a god and what they can do and seeing histories pass by, and then another where you're seeing a glimpse where this god is telling you a story and you don't quite know why this particular story is important, and you have to figure out why along the way. That's super vague, but I really loved how Ann Leckie put this together. I thought it was very creative, and I had a lot of fun kind of trying to figure out all the breadcrumbs as I read through the book. Next, we have a book that I haven't read yet, but I have been interested in it for a really long time and I just haven't picked it up. It is Entwined by H.M. Long, and this story, first off, I just absolutely love the cover. If I can make it not shine at you. It is it has this woman with this really fancy dress and these little figures all around. It's intriguing to me. We have our main character whose name is Tilly, and she has a magic that would ensnare her into some empire politics. There's something called the Guild that she really does not want to be a part of, but because of the type of magic that she has, she would get trapped into service for them, and she finds a way out, but she ends up having to hunt down a missing artifact with some characters from her past in order to escape the future that she doesn't want. I am really intrigued in this. It sounds like it has some mystery components along with it. I don't know what her magic is. I know it talks about being entwined, but I don't know what that means. So I'm excited to get into this one and see what it's all about. Next, we have The Dark Archive by Genevieve Cogman. This is one of the books in the Invisible Library series. I am trying to collect all of them. So this is just adding to the mix that I have right now. If you haven't heard of the Invisible Library series, the first book is The Invisible Library, and it literally is on a library that is connected to a whole bunch of different dimensions, and it is connected to these worlds by keeping artifacts safe that make those worlds what they are and who they are. Irene, our main character, is a librarian, so she is on a mission at the beginning of The Invisible Library, the first book, to capture a book from a world that is one of a kind, and something happens to the book and she has to figure out what to do with it. and where to go from there. She has her assistant Kai, who is also just kind of a faithful sidekick throughout the entire series. I really, really love this series. I love the focus on all of the different types of creatures in the world, as far as dragons and ghosts and werewolves, and it has all of the things in it. And you have kingdom politics, you have species politics within this. It's a lot of fun. Next, we have a fantasy mystery series, which is The Hexologists by Josiah Bancroft and A Tangle of Time by Josiah Bancroft. Both of them feature our main two characters, Iz and War, who are a married couple, and throughout both of these stories, they have to solve various mysteries. In the first book, Iz is approached by someone within the nobility, the royalty in her city, and is asked to do something, and she really doesn't want to. She's someone who does not really want to work for the higher classes. She's really there for the people of the city, and she helps with turning away supernatural creatures that could potentially be harmful by using hexes and hexology, but she ends up getting embroiled in some court politics as well, which she's not super happy about, but she ends up having to work through this thing that she's being asked to do. And I really, really love this series because of the fact that we have a married couple. It's a fresh take on our relationship, a very established relationship where two characters just work together, and they work together because of their history. They know one another really well, and I think that it's written incredibly well in this series. There's a fun cast of characters along with Iz and War as well. So the whole series was very entertaining, and one that I definitely will come back to in the future. Next, we have another fantasy mystery series, and this is one that I have been singing its praises for a little bit, at least the first book, because I don't hear anyone talk about this series, and I have recently reread the first book. I am currently reading the second book, and I'm very excited that there will eventually be a third, and that is the books of the Usurper. The first book is The Empire of Exiles, and the one that I'm currently in the middle of is Relics of Ruin. I really, really love this fantasy mystery, and I wish more people would give it a try. There aren't a lot of reviews, but I had so much fun, especially with my reread. I think that there is a lot of details within the book. There's a lot of things within the kingdom that you have to learn about, and so I think upon reread it really was eye-opening, some of the things that I missed upon the first glance. But this follows I would say our main character is a character whose name is Quill, and in this first book, he is embroiled in this murder mystery that occurs. And I'll just say that no one else really thinks that it's a mystery. He believes that the person who has been accused is not actually the murderer, and there are some other weird things afoot, and so he starts digging and finds some information that other people don't really want him to have. There are a whole bunch of elements of history within this. You get to learn about this kingdom that is currently living inside of a wall because they are hiding from the changeling army that had almost destroyed them years and years and years ago. There was also the history of the usurper, as far as someone who tried to take over once their kingdom was established, and that created wars on the inside of their walls. You also have the archivists, who are people who are really interested in the history of the kingdom, but you also have them having certain abilities as well to handle and read and deal with all facets of items. So think like brass, bronze, glass, sand, bone. There's all these different facets they could potentially be specialists in, and you get to learn what that means as you read through the story. But I just found the whole world engrossing, and I really loved the cast of characters as well that we get to know in the first book and continue with them in the second book in the series. So I am looking forward to whenever the third book comes out, of being able to sing its praises once again, because I will not shut up about this book until more people read it. Next, we have a fun fantasy book that might be good for a quirky, spooky season read if you guys are looking for something on the lighter side, and that is Slayers of Old by Jim Hines. I am not going to say that this was the best book that I have ever read. It definitely has its plot holes and some things that maybe aren't explained as well as they could be, but I had such a fun time with it. The cast of characters in this is very, very fun. You have an elderly wizard who I think is like 98 or 99. You have two middle-aged, two elderly women. I can't remember their ages. I think maybe one of them's in her 50s and the other one's in her late 60s, maybe. And they all run a bookshop together. They have retired. They used to be very infamous people in their past. They used to save the world all the time, and they don't want to do that anymore. So they've kind of settled down, but because of circumstances in their neighborhood, they have to come out of retirement to save the world. And there are so many goofy things that happen in this. There's some found family elements within these people who are banding together to save the world in not their prime. So that causes some issues. There are a lot of fantastical creatures and things that are discussed as well. I had a lot of fun with it. I think that my main criticism is that the book is very short. And so some of the cryptids and things that are experienced in the story, you don't get to go like in a deep dive of them because of the fact that we only have a certain number of pages, but I still had a lot of fun, and I do think that it would be fun for spooky season. The last of my fantasy books is the second book in the Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, Tapestry of Fate by Shannon Chakraborty, and I really enjoyed being back with Amina. I do think I enjoyed the first book better than I enjoyed the second one, and I'm not going to tell you much about this one because it's a sequel, but if you haven't heard of the Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, you are following a woman who is in her late 40s, and she is retired from pirating, but because of various circumstances, she gets pulled back into it, has to get the gang back together and go on one last mission to try and find something that someone is hunting for. And you have this mash of cultures within the ship and fantastical things that are happening within the world that Amina has to deal with. And I just really love her character. She's sassy, she kicks ass, even though she is known to be, you know, not in her prime and probably too old for the profession that she's currently in. She is a woman with a name, and people know who she is, which I just absolutely love. Moving on to my sci-fi reads, I have the first book is a mashup, so it's actually 3 books in one, and that is Chaotic Orbits. So the Chaotic Orbits series, the first book is A Full Speed to a Crash Landing by Beth Revis, and I really enjoyed this little sci-fi mystery. You have a woman who at the first book has crashed and has an SOS signal out to all the ships that could potentially get to her. She was on her way to a shipwreck to try and salvage what she could, and the ship that picks her up is on the way to the shipwreck as well. And you know that something's not quite right as she joins this other ship. She tells you, as the narrator of the book, she tells you that she has something up her sleeve, but you're not quite sure what's going on. I think the book is really, really clever. I like the relationship between our 2 main characters, and I really liked the solar system politics. I don't want to say kingdom politics, but I like the politics involved with the 2 different factions within the story as well. Next in the sci-fi category is a book that I've talked about recently on my channel, and that is Slow Gods by Claire North. I absolutely love this, and I can't wait to reread it. It was a book that I think I read a little bit too quickly, and there are so many things that I should have stopped to contemplate along with the character, because it is very slow paced. And I think that this will maybe be a sleeper book. I think a lot of people can find things to love within this story, and I hope that more people read it. You have our main character who becomes a pilot, not necessarily because he wants to, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Being a pilot in the way that he is forced to be one is not necessarily healthy for people, and on his first voyage, something happens. He comes back not necessarily human. So he becomes almost this creature of legend, and throughout this story, you are getting a catastrophic event that occurs that is literally world ending. So we have a universe. We have multiple planets, and some planets are in the path of this catastrophic event. But obviously they are years and years and years apart because of the distance between planets. And our character, because of the circumstances of his life and how he lives, what he is embroiled in the recovery, I guess I'll say, of some of the citizens of one of the planets that is in the path of destruction. And throughout this book, he focuses on what it means to die. What does this world-ending event mean to the people on this planet? What's important to take away from the events that are occurring? There's so much more to it than just this one planet's death, because so many planets have died. It's all of the events that happen along the way that he also gets to witness, how he's treated because of who he is. I really love all of the small components of the story, and as I said, I can't wait to reread it and get to know all of the little bitty pieces once again. The last sci-fi is actually another book that I've mentioned recently on my channel, and that is Ode to the Half-Broken by Suzanne Palmer. I love this. This was a 5-star read for me, and I already want to reread it because I love the main characters. I love the cast of characters. I love the concepts and the themes that are covered within this story. If you haven't heard of it, because I do think that this is also a sleeper book, I don't think a lot of people have read it or are talking about it. You have a main character who is a war mech, and he wakes up in a bathtub with no leg. And so he has limited mobility. He doesn't know why his leg is missing. And you learn throughout the story that he has isolated himself from the world. You also learn why that is. So he's coming into the world for the first time in a long time with some other people who are helping him in his quest to find who took his leg and to get it back. And while doing that, you get to look at what the world has become as he has isolated himself away from the rest of the planet, and you get to know his history along with the cast of characters. I will say Suzanne Palmer does a really, really good job of every single character in this book that you meet, small, big, however many pages they have. You are going to know who they are and their backstory. Every single one of them is important, which I just absolutely ate up. The next category is just one book, and it is my mystery category. I recently added Big Bad Wolf to my shelves. This is by Leonie Swan, and I have the first book in the series, which is 3 Bags Full, and I just had to have the second book after reading it. I love both of these dearly. They're about a bunch of sheep whose shepherd passes, and they have to figure out who murdered him. At least that's what happens in the first book. I won't tell you what happens in the second book, but you're following the same set of sheep and another mystery that they get embroiled in. I love how Leonie Swan writes the sheep, their personalities, how each of them kind of comes off page. You know who each of them are. And I will say that I think Big Bad Wolf, I think both of these, honestly, would be great for spooky season. I like reading mysteries around spooky season, but I think Big Bad Wolf definitely so. This one, 3 Bags Full, leans more heavy on the mystery, whereas Big Bad Wolf has mystery components, but you also have some horror components as well, which I found very fun. So both of these, great mystery books. They're kind of silly. There's also a movie out if you guys are interested in the sheep detectives. I do think that it's vastly different than the first book, but it's still very sweet and funny as these sheep find their way through a murder mystery. The last category that I will go through with you guys is my horror category, and the first book that I will start you guys off with is one that I have not read yet, but I am very excited because I have read from the author before, and that is The Lord of the Wood by E.M. Anderson. And first off, this cover is just stunning. I think that it's beautiful. I am excited about this. I'm a little nervous. This is the same author as The Remarkable Retirement of Edna Fisher, which is also in my collection, and I absolutely loved it. This is a little different because it's a romance, which is not typically in my wheelhouse, but it is fantasy horror romance, which I think is an odd category. So we'll see how that goes. But you have our main character, who I think his name is Arthur, and he is someone who really wants adventure in his life. but unfortunately his life has not allowed him to have said adventures. His father has told him some stories of his own adventures, some of them involving this deep dark woods that they live next to, and he is given the opportunity / task of going into the woods to find something specific. There is a creature within the woods known as the Lord of the Woods that everyone is fearful of, and I believe he has to work with that Lord of the Woods in order to find something that could potentially save the wood or maybe cure it of however it's enchanted. I've heard that the wood piece of this is very dark, so we'll see. I have read the author's note in this. I'm a little worried that some of the themes in the book maybe will be a little heavy for me, but I still really want to read it, and so I would suggest that if you are interested, you look up some trigger warnings, because the author themselves has said that there definitely should be some maybe precursory reading before you pick this up, just to make sure that you guys are aware of what's in the story. And the last books that I have for you guys in the horror category and for this video is the How to Survive Camping series. I purchased both books 1 and books 2. I'm sure I will purchase book 3 whenever it comes out. We have The Man with No Shadow, which I did read it was last month or the month before, and then The Lady in Chains, which I have not read yet. I freaking loved this first book. It was so fun. You have, our main character is the person who is in charge of this campground, and this campground is very, very ancient, has a lot of cryptids on it that are very dangerous for people, and so she's literally writing a chronicle of events that have happened within her campground and rules for staying alive. So she's giving you a rule and then explaining why it is a rule, and it does not pull its punches on some of the things that happen to these campers, but along with that kind of horrific stuff that is happening with these campers, horrific deaths, you also have this really campy vibe because it's literally like camp horror. And it feels, this first book felt like I was sitting in a campfire and someone was reading me ghost stories. I just absolutely loved it. I love learning about all of the folklore surrounding the creatures that are on this camp and why they kill people, and it's so good. So I'm looking forward to getting to book 2 and book 3 eventually. Typically at the end of these videos, I hold up the stack of books that I've read and the stack of books that I haven't read out of the books that I'm adding to my collection. I'm not going to do the books that I have read because there are 13 of them and I don't want to hold up 13 books. So I will just hold up the books that I have not read yet. So we have one fantasy, or I guess 2 fantasies, and then a horror and a fantasy horror, or fantasy horror romance, however that works out. I'm very excited about all of these, and I will say that 2 of them, so the 2 on the ends, are books in a series, and so I am fairly confident that I'm going to enjoy them because I enjoyed the first book in the series. The E.M. Anderson, I've read from that author before, so I think the only risky book I would say that I'm adding to my collection is the H.M. Long, and that's just because I haven't read from that author before. So I'm very excited to add all of these to my shelves. I hope that you found some of these interesting. Are any of these on your TBR or on your physical shelves? Have you already read them? Tell me if you've enjoyed them. If you didn't enjoy them, I would love to hear you guys in the comments down below. If you aren't feeling chatty but you still want to let me know that you're here, leave me a book stack emoji so I know that you're with me. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.